With great power comes great responsibility. It's a saying that doesn't just apply to Spider-Man, but can also be used when talking about other superheroes, like Alex Mercer for instance. He can devour other living beings to regenerate, morph his arms into deadly weapons, and even his body into someone else's, provided it's been consumed. But is he really a hero, or are you becoming an accomplice to an irredeemable monster? Waking up in a morgue, our protagonist discovers that not only is he bulletproof, but also has superhuman strength. Having no memory, he tries to piece together his former life, only to find out that something has gone terribly wrong in the city, as there is now a mutating virus loose, and the private military company responsible for maintaining order doesn't have any sort of problem upholding martial law, killing indiscriminately, and generally checking all the boxes of being both a private corporation and evil. You then proceed to piece together all the past and current events while trying your best to remain physically intact and psychologically human. While the story does occasionally surprise, the real highlight is the web of intrigue. While eating people up is all in a day's work for Alex, some people have worthwhile memories that Alex will actually keep in mind, and not only do they reveal the intriguing backstory, but they are also stylish and generally fun to watch. But Prototype sells itself on gameplay, and for good reason. If you like options, the game has you covered. First of all is travel. In what has to be a premiere for an open world action title, you can't hijack vehicles, but given that Alex puts Usain Bolt to shame from the very beginning, you won't mind that at all. Besides, helicopters and tanks are fair game, so you won't miss the ability to drive a car. Navigating Manhattan is simply a pleasure, as the game tells you from the beginning that you aren't stuck on ground level, but can also run up buildings as you please. Few games elicit such joy out of the simple act of movement, but Prototype has it down to an art form. The prologue introduces you to all of Alex's powers, but you'll have to work to earn them after that. When it comes to self-defense, there is a good variety of offensive abilities. Not only can you shapeshift your hands into copyright-infringing Wolverine claws, but also a giant blade, a whip that most sadomasochists dream of, and muscle mass that puts steroids to shame by allowing you to take out tanks in no more than 2 hits. While each is generally useful, some are situationally better than the others. The bulky muscle mass laden hands can make short work of armor, but they aren't much use against faster enemies. For the most part, ranged weapons and attacks like the whip or kick are the safest bet, as keeping a distance is one of the best ways to stay alive. Ultimately, it's simply a lot of fun to kick a ton of ass in countless ways. Side missions are unfortunately uninspired affairs, however. Sure, they're challenging and impose mastery of your powers, and some are even tied into the story by pointing you toward web of intrigue targets, but since they mostly lack context or significant gameplay rewards, don't expect to spend much time completing them. If you really want extra experience, you're better off looking for the secret orbs and web of intrigue targets scattered around the city. These stand in as secrets, and while they can be hard to find due to the limited draw distance, the rewards they offer feel satisfying. Particularly the hint orbs that reveal strategies you might not have tried yet. Consuming other living beings is par for the course, as Alex is one of the few infected with a mind of his own. Consuming someone nets you some health, which means everyone is a health kit. But before getting too excited about indulging in your cannibalistic tendencies, you should know that it takes a few seconds for that hearty meal to go down, so avoiding damage is recommended when having a snack. Thankfully, Alex is a speed demon, and even without mobility upgrades, he can quickly outrun the military. With the upgrades, the military has no chance of getting you, and if you're at full health, you can unleash an attack that would put most tentacle porn to shame, as countless tendrils are launched out of Alex, hurting everything in the way. It's a great way to get those pesky enemies out of your way and reinforces the notion that you actually have options. While you can even go about doing demolition work by destroying army bases and infected hives, these don't feel particularly satisfying since they are only down temporarily, and having to do the same demolition multiple times is deflating to the point where you'll stop doing it. Stealth is also simply far too forgiving. The fact that you can run up buildings while disguised without anyone batting an eye is downright silly, and the partial blindness is just as distracting when you're infiltrating a base. And while you can unlock countless upgrades, it's a shame the most expensive ones aren't even going to see any use, as the generally useful ones are mostly cheap, and the costly ones are only helpful in very specific scenarios you might not even encounter while playing. And the boss battles need to be mentioned, as these guys are hardcore bullet sponges that can take forever to kill if you don't know what to do, and even if you do know, it still takes a while to beat them down. What fun. Prototype looks good in motion, and even when there are 100 models and plenty of explosions, things don't slow down. People get sliced in half and blood sprays in no short supply, only adding to the sense of carnage. That said, all buildings save for a few landmarks look the same, and a closer look reveals countless low-resolution textures. Skin glistens with an unnatural shine as though everyone's been using just a little too much Nivea, and the draw distance can make secret orbs hard to collect at times. Sound too is fantastic when there's heavy action thanks to intense music, but occasionally missing sound effects and run-of-the-mill dialogue and acting, again, don't help. Prototype's presentation is easily its worst aspect, but since the focus is on action, it's still mostly good. Prototype is something very few games are. Stupidly fun. Yes, there are better looking games with better stories, but when you look at the game as a whole, even its worst aspects are at least adequate. Like with any other Activision game, the Steam version is overpriced, but since boxed copies can still be found, it's still worth the investment. If you don't mind some underwhelming graphics and want bloody violence, this is a game you have to try out, even if simply to run up buildings.